The massive screen in Earth's global command center lit up with an unfamiliar signal pattern. The room fell silent as the strange symbols danced across the display. Captain James Walker stood quietly, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, while the computers decoded the message. After 20 years of sending peaceful signals into space, someone had finally answered. "Sir, translation complete," announced the young officer at the communication station. It's a warning, sir." Walker moved closer to read the decoded message. The aliens, calling themselves the Stellar Coalition, demanded Earth's immediate surrender. They had detected humanity's advanced weapons technology and considered it a threat to their expansion. What the Coalition didn't know was that Earth had changed. The scars of the last war still marked the planet's surface. Vast areas where cities once stood, now transformed into memorial gardens. Humanity had learned its lesson the hard way, nearly destroying itself before finally understanding that true power lay in choosing not to use it. Ambassador Mark Thompson arrived at the command center within the hour. His simple gray suit stood out among the decorated uniforms around him. "Have we sent any response?" he asked Walker. "Not yet. We wanted to wait for you." Walker gestured to the message. "They're expecting us to either surrender or attack. Their ships are positioned just beyond Mars' orbit." Thompson nodded slowly, a slight smile crossing his face. "Then let's surprise them. Open a channel." The Coalition's response was swift when Earth transmitted its message. Their holographic projection filled the command center. A tall, imposing figure with features that seemed both insect and reptilian. First Speaker Ray, as the alien identified itself, spoke in a tone that suggested confusion rather than hostility. "You invite us to talk. Our scans show your weapons could destroy half our fleet, yet you propose discussion. Precisely because we can destroy, we choose not to," Thompson replied calmly. "We learned that lesson at great cost. Would you like to hear our story?" The alien leader's compound eyes flickered with what might have been interest. "You intrigue us, humans. Our species has always believed that power must be used to maintain dominance. Then let us show you another way." Thompson gestured to the window, where Earth's diplomatic vessel Olive Branch waited in orbit. "We invite you aboard our ship. No weapons, no guards, just stories and ideas." First Speaker Ray was silent for a long moment. "You would trust us so easily." "Trust must start somewhere," Thompson answered. "We'll share our food, our history, and our hopes for the future. Perhaps together, we can build something greater than either of us could achieve alone." The Coalition's initial scans had revealed Earth's devastating weapons, but they hadn't detected the vast networks of hospitals, schools, and research centers. They hadn't seen the global cooperation that had replaced ancient rivalries, or the massive environmental restoration projects that had healed the planet's wounds. As the Olive Branch prepared for the historic meeting, Dr. Anna Miller, the ship's cynoanthropologist, studied the Coalition's known history. "They've never known true peace," she told Walker. "Every technological advance they made was driven by warfare. They don't understand why we stopped." "Then we'll help them understand," Walker replied, watching his crew prepare the conference room with Earth's traditional symbols of peace, living plants, works of art, and most importantly, an ancient olive branch preserved in crystal. The day of the meeting arrived. As First Speaker Ray's shuttle docked with the olive branch, Admiral Tom Reed stood beside Thompson. Reed had once commanded Earth's most powerful warships. Now he advised on peaceful solutions to conflicts. "They're scanning us again," Reed noted quietly. "Let them," Thompson replied. "Let them see that our weapons remain powered down. Actions speak louder than words." The airlock cycled open. First Speaker Ray entered, flanked by Coalition officials. They moved with military precision, eyes darting to assess threats and exits, but they found only humans waiting to greet them with open hands and genuine smiles. Thompson stepped forward. "Welcome to the Olive Branch. We have much to share with you about why humanity chose a different path." Would you like to hear about the day we decided that peace required more courage than war? First speaker Ray's defensive posture relaxed slightly. Yes, it said. Tell us about this choice. 3 months after the first meeting, Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the Olive Branch, watching the stars. The peace talks had gone well. Too well, perhaps. His years of experience told him something wasn't right. Captain, called out his sensor officer, we're picking up distress signals from the mining colony on Europa. Walker's eyes narrowed. The colony was Earth's newest settlement, still being built. Show me. The screen displayed 3 unknown ships attacking the colony's outer structures. Their design was similar to coalition vessels, but not quite the same. The colonists were evacuating into the underground shelters, following emergency protocols. Weapons are ready, sir, reported his tactical officer. The Olive Branch's advanced defense systems could easily destroy the attackers. Walker took a deep breath. No, plot a rescue course instead. Alert medical to prepare for casualties. He opened a channel to Earth Command. This is a test, he said simply. Dr. Anna Miller looked up from her studies of coalition behavior patterns. They're watching how we react, she agreed. Their entire history is built on responding to force with force. They need to know if our peace is real or just a trick. The Olive Branch arrived at Europa within hours. The attack ships turned to face them. Weapons charge. Walker ordered all defensive shields down. This is Captain Walker of the Earth vessel Olive Branch. We're here to help the injured. Will you allow us to approach? The attacking ships hesitated. This wasn't how their simulations had predicted humans would react. Where was the revenge? The show of force. Their weapons remained aimed at the Olive Branch, but they didn't fire. Walker's crew moved quickly, sending medical shuttles to the surface. They rescued injured colonists and even helped repair the colony's damaged life support systems, all while the mysterious ships watched, weapons still ready. Back on Earth, Ambassador Thompson was meeting with First Speaker Ray. Neither mentioned the attack, but both knew what it meant. Your people are strange, Ambassador, Ray said, placing a cup of Earth tea on the table. Our scans show your ship could have destroyed those attackers easily. Thompson smiled. Would destroying them have proved anything except that we can kill? We chose to save lives instead. But the attackers were clearly hostile. Ray pressed. In our experience, failure to respond with force only invites more aggression. Maybe. But every time we choose peace over war, we prove to ourselves and others that there's a better way. Thompson poured more tea. Tell me, First Speaker, in all your wars, has violence ever truly solved the underlying problems? Ray's compound eyes flickered, a sign of deep thought among his species. An interesting question, one we have never thought to ask. Meanwhile, Dr. Miller was sharing her findings with Admiral Reed. Look at these patterns, she said, pointing to her data. Every coalition species developed through constant conflict. They believe it's the only way to evolve. Our peaceful response doesn't fit their worldview. Reed nodded. So they're testing us to understand how we can be both powerful and peaceful. They think it's a trick because they've never seen it before. Back at Europa, the mysterious ships finally retreated. The colony was safe, its people cared for, and not a single shot had been fired. As the ships disappeared into deep space, Walker received a message from one of them. We do not understand. Walker sent back a simple reply. Understanding takes time. We're patient. That evening, First Speaker Ray met with his council. The humans passed our test, but not in any way we expected. They had every reason to fight, yet they chose to heal instead. Perhaps, said one council member, we should consider that their way might not be weakness after all. As the council debated, Dr. Miller added another entry to her growing database. Today marks the first crack in the coalition's belief that strength only comes through violence. They're beginning to question their most basic assumptions about power and survival. The test they designed to expose our weakness has instead revealed their own. The seeds of change had been planted. The question was, would they grow? Dr. Anna Miller stood before the combined Earth Coalition Council, her hands steady as she prepared to share her findings. 6 months of research had revealed a pattern that changed everything they thought they knew about their alien visitors. Every species in the coalition, she began, evolved through constant warfare, but not in the way we first thought. She displayed a series of images showing different coalition worlds. They didn't choose war. They were designed for it. The room grew quiet. First Speaker Ray's outer shell shifted colors, a sign of discomfort among his kind. The coalition's homeworlds were all survival challenges, Miller continued. Harsh environments, deadly predators, extreme competition for resources. Their scientists found that every coalition species faced extinction at least 3 times before reaching space. Ambassador Thompson leaned forward. Are you saying they never had a choice? Until now, Miller nodded. They evolved to fight because those who didn't fight didn't survive. War wasn't their choice. It was their only option. First Speaker Ray stood suddenly. You speak of things we do not discuss. His voice carried both warning and fear. These are the sacred trials that proved our worth. Captain Walker, watching from the back of the room, saw something in Ray's reaction that no one else noticed: shame. The coalition's mighty leader was ashamed. Sacred trials, Miller asked gently, or tragic waste. How many brilliant minds did you lose? How many potential cures for diseases? How many artists, musicians, dreamers? The coalition members stirred uneasily. These were questions they had never dared to ask. Admiral Reed stepped forward. We understand survival. Earth's history is full of wars. He pulled up an image of Earth's scarred surface. But we learned something you haven't had the chance to learn yet. There's a difference between surviving and living. First Speaker Ray's colors shifted again. How can you be so strong without conflict? Our scans show your weapons, your defenses. You could conquer galaxies. Yet you choose not to. It defies everything we know about power. Thompson smiled. Because we learned that the strongest walls aren't built with weapons. They're built with trust. He walked to the center of the room. Would you like to see how? The next few hours changed everything. Earth shared its history, not just the wars, but the peace that followed. They showed how countries that once pointed nuclear weapons at each other now work together to heal their planet. How former enemies shared food, medicine, and knowledge. But it was Dr. Miller's next revelation that truly shook the coalition. Your latest generation, she said, displaying data from her studies, is already changing. Since meeting us, your young have begun showing signs of different development. They're asking questions, seeking alternatives. Evolution didn't stop with war. It's continuing with peace. First Speaker Ray moved to examine the data. These changes, they're real. Very real, Miller confirmed. Your people aren't trapped by their past. You can choose a different future. The Coalition Council erupted in debate. Some were angry, calling it weakness. Others were curious, seeing hope for the first time. A few sat in stunned silence, their entire worldview crumbling. Captain Walker watched it all from his corner. He'd seen this before, the moment when a society realizes its foundations aren't as solid as they thought. It was always painful, always frightening, and always necessary. What do we do now? One of the coalition members asked, voice trembling. Thompson stepped forward again. Now we help you discover who you can be when you're not forced to fight, when you can choose your path. First Speaker Ray's colors settled into a pattern never seen before, a mix of fear and hope. And if we fail, then we'll help you try again, Walker said from his corner. That's what friends do. As the council meeting ended, Dr. Miller added one final note to her research. Today marks the beginning of the Coalition's greatest challenge, learning to live without the constant pressure of war. They're afraid, confused, and uncertain. In other words, they're finally free to become something new, something better, something of their own choosing. The revelation was complete. Now came the hard part. change. Red lights flashed across Earth's global command center. The attack had come without warning. A radical group from the Coalition had struck Earth's newest colony on Mars, destroying supply lines and damaging the main habitat dome. 2,000 colonists were trapped, their air slowly leaking into the thin Martian atmosphere. Captain Walker stood at his post on the olive branch, watching the tactical display. His weapon systems showed multiple solutions for a counterattack. Every military instinct told him to strike back. Instead, he opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is exactly what they expect us to do," Ambassador Thompson said over the secure line. "They want us to prove that our peace is just a mask, that when pushed hard enough, we'll show our true nature." Those colonists have less than 6 hours of air left. Admiral Reed reminded them, "Whatever we do, we need to do it fast." First Speaker Ray appeared on the main screen, his colors showing distress. "We did not authorize this attack. These extremists act against our wishes." "We know," Thompson replied calmly. "That's why we're not going to attack them. We're going to save everyone, including them." The Coalition members watching the transmission stirred in confusion. Even Ray seemed startled. "You would help those who tried to kill your people." "Yes," Walker said firmly, "because that's who we choose to be." The next few hours showed the Coalition something they had never seen before. The Olive Branch, Earth's most powerful warship, transformed into a rescue vessel. Its weapon ports opened not to fire, but to extend emergency repair equipment. Its shields expanded to protect not just itself, but the damaged colony and even the attacking ships. Dr. Miller coordinated with the medical team. "Their ships are also damaged," she reported. "They didn't expect the backblast from their own weapons in Mars' atmosphere. They're trapped here too." "Perfect," Thompson said. "Prepare additional rescue shuttles. We'll save them all." The Coalition extremists watched in bewilderment as human rescue teams approached their ships. Their weapons were still hot from the attack, but the humans came anyway, offering help, offering life. "Why?" one of the extremist leaders demanded. "We tried to kill you. We damaged your colony. Why would you help us?" "Because you're hurt," responded the human rescue team leader. "Nothing else matters right now." On the colony surface, human engineers worked frantically to seal a habitat dome. They shared their emergency air supply with both colonists and attackers alike. In the medical bay, doctors treated everyone without asking which side they were on. First Speaker Ray watched it all through the video feeds. "I don't understand," he said to Thompson. "Your people are dying, yet you risk more lives to save your attackers. What better way to show that peace isn't weakness?" Thompson replied, "Anyone can destroy. Creation, healing, saving lives. That takes real strength." Hour by hour, the rescue continued. The colony's air supply stabilized. The damaged ships were repaired. Lives that could have been lost were saved, all of them. In the end, the extremist leader stood before Walker on the Olive Branches Bridge. "We were wrong about you," he said quietly. "We thought your peace was a deception, a trick to hide your strength." "Peace is our strength," Walker replied. "It's a choice we make every day, especially in moments like this." The news spread quickly through Coalition space. They had expected Earth to respond with overwhelming force. The humans had the right, the weapons, and the justification. Instead, they had responded with something far more powerful: mercy. Dr. Miller added another note to her research. "Today marks a fundamental shift in Coalition understanding. They finally saw that choosing peace isn't about being unable to fight. It's about being strong enough not to." As the crisis ended, First Speaker Ray made an unprecedented request. "Teach us," he said to Thompson, "not just about peace, but about the strength it takes to choose it, even when every instinct calls for revenge." Thompson looked out at Mars, where humans and Coalition members now work together to rebuild. "That," he said, "is exactly what we've been doing all along." The old bunker lay deep beneath what was once a battlefield. Now, wildflowers grew where tanks had once rolled. Ambassador Thompson led first speaker Ray through the underground museum, their footsteps echoing in the dim light. "This was our turning point," Thompson said, stopping at a massive screen showing Earth's last war. "We had weapons that could destroy planets, ships that could burn stars, and we almost used them all." Ray's compound eyes reflected the images of destruction. "Yet you stopped. Why?" "Because of her." Thompson pointed to a photo of a small girl offering water to a wounded soldier from the opposing side. "This image went viral, as we say. It showed us what we were becoming, and what we could be instead." In orbit above Earth, Captain Walker was giving other coalition members a different kind of tour. The olive branch's view screen showed Earth's great restoration projects. Forests replanted, oceans cleaned, cities rebuilt with nature in mind. "Your weapons could have conquered worlds," one coalition member said. "Instead, you used that technology to heal your planet." Walker nodded. "The same energy that powers our strongest weapons now powers our cities. The computers designed for warfare now predict weather patterns and help us grow food. We didn't give up our strength. We redirected it." Meanwhile, Dr. Miller was sharing her research with coalition scientists. "Look at these brain scans," she said, displaying images from both species. "When we choose peace over violence, these areas light up. Your brains have these same regions. They're just waiting to be used." The coalition scientists leaned forward, fascinated. One asked, "But how did humans first learn to make this choice?" Miller smiled. "We had help." She showed them ancient texts from Earth's philosophers, religious leaders, and peace activists. "Throughout our violent history, there were always those who imagined a better way. We finally learned to listen." Back in the Bunker Museum, Thompson showed Ray humanity's darkest moments and how they became turning points. "Each time we chose peace when we could have chosen war," Thompson explained. "It got easier, like exercising a muscle we'd never used before." Ray touched a piece of broken wall, preserved from the last war. "Our young ones, they're starting to ask questions we never dared to ask. They want to know if there's another way." "There always is," Thompson said softly. "The hard part is being brave enough to try it." In the Olive Branch's meeting room, Admiral Reed shared tactical displays with coalition military leaders. But instead of showing weapon placements, they showed defense systems designed to protect without harming. "Your shield technology is remarkable," one coalition commander admitted. "It must have taken great courage to focus on defense rather than attack." Reed nodded. "The real courage came from our adversaries who chose to trust us when we offered peace. Each time they did, it proved we were on the right path." As evening fell, First Speaker Ray gathered with his council aboard their ship. The coalition leaders had spent the day learning Earth's history from different perspectives: military, scientific, cultural, and personal. "They are stronger than us," Ray said finally. "Not because of their weapons, but because they dare to imagine peace." A council member spoke up. "Can we dare to imagine it too?" "We already are," Miller said from the doorway, where she'd been invited to observe. "Every question you ask about peace is an act of courage. Every doubt you have about war is a step toward freedom." Ray's colors shifted to a new pattern, one that Dr. Miller had never seen before. "Tell me, Doctor," he said, "when your people first chose peace, were you as frightened as we are now?" "More," she answered honestly. "Change is always scary. But being stuck in an endless cycle of violence is scarier." As the Earth rotated below them, showing the healed scars of its violent past, Ray made a decision. "We want to learn," he said, "not just about peace, but about choice itself. Will you teach us?" Thompson, who had just arrived, smiled. "No," he said kindly. "We'll learn together. That's what peace is really about." The coalition members looked out at Earth, a planet that had chosen to grow beyond its violent past. For the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine doing the same. The emergency alert woke Captain Walker in the middle of the night. The Coalition's main fleet had split in two, weapons charged on both sides. Brother faced brother, parent faced child, all because of a simple question. Should they choose peace? "We need to help them," Walker said, watching the standoff from the olive branch's bridge. "But how?" Thompson asked. "If we interfere, we'll only prove that force is still the answer." The Coalition ships faced each other near their home world. One side, led by First Speaker Ray, wanted to follow Earth's path toward peace. The other side, commanded by those who feared change, insisted that war was the only way to stay strong. Dr. Miller rushed onto the bridge. "Look at their communication patterns," she said, pointing to her datapad. "The peace faction is talking. The war faction is silent. They're following our example without even realizing it." Walker understood. They're choosing communication over confrontation. In the Coalition's main chamber, Ray stood before the divided council. "For generations, we believed that power came from destruction. But humans showed us something different. The power to build, to heal, to grow." "And become weak," shouted an opponent. "Their ways will destroy us." "Then why haven't they destroyed us already?" Ray asked quietly. "They have the power. They've always had it. Instead, they shared their food, their medicine, their knowledge." On the olive branch, Admiral Reed watched the Coalition's military formations. "Notice how the peace faction keeps their weapons power down," he said. "They're copying our defensive stance from the Europa incident." Thompson nodded. "They learned more than we realized." The tension in Coalition space grew. The war faction moved their ships into attack position. Everyone waited for the first shot. Instead, Ray did something unprecedented. He ordered all ships in his faction to lower their shields. "What are you doing?" his officers asked. "Showing them what real strength looks like," Ray answered. The war faction hesitated. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. Their targeting computers had no protocol for an enemy that refused to be an enemy. Walker watched from the olive branch, his hands gripped behind his back. "They're at the same point we were," he said softly. "The moment when everything can change." Dr. Miller added, "Or when everything can be lost." Through the Coalition's public channels, Ray spoke to everyone. "Look at what fear of change has done to us. We point weapons at our own families. Is this the strength we're so afraid to lose?" The war faction's leader responded, "Without war, what are we? Fighting made us strong." "No," Ray said. "Fighting kept us alive. But living, truly living, that's what the humans showed us. They build things that last. They create instead of destroy. And they're stronger for it." On the olive branch, Thompson prepared a message. But Walker stopped him. "No," the captain said. "This is their moment to choose. We can't choose for them." Hour by hour, more Coalition ships powered down their weapons, not because they were defeated, but because they chose not to fight. The war faction found themselves facing not enemies, but family members who simply wanted something better. "Our ancestors fought because they had to survive," Ray continued. "We fight because we never learned another way. Until now, Earth showed us that peace isn't the absence of strength, it's the best use of it." Finally, the war faction's leader spoke again. "How can we be sure this new path won't destroy us?" "We can't," Ray admitted. "But we can be sure the old path will. Look what it's doing to us right now." The words hung in space. Everyone waited. Slowly, the war faction began lowering their weapons. Not all at once, but one by one, each making their own choice. On the olive branch, the crew watched in silence as the Coalition chose their future. "They did it," Miller whispered. "They actually did it." "No," Thompson corrected gently. "They're doing it. Change isn't a moment, it's a journey. They're just taking their first steps." Walker looked at Earth's image on his screen, remembering their own first steps toward peace. "And like us," he said, "they'll never walk that path alone." 1 year after the Coalition chose peace, their home world hosted the first Galactic Peace Summit. The same chamber that once echoed with war plans now filled with voices discussing art, science, and exploration. Captain Walker stood by the window, watching Coalition children play with human children in the garden below. Still watching for trouble? Ambassador Thompson asked, joining him. Walker smiled. Old habits, but these days I'm watching for something else. What's that? Signs of change. Look there. He pointed to where Coalition engineers worked with human scientists, converting an old weapons factory into a hospital. A year ago, that would have been impossible. First Speaker Ray approached them, his colors showing the new patterns that had become common among his people, the colors of hope. Our young ones ask about war now, he said, not to glorify it, but to understand why we ever thought it was the only way. Dr. Miller joined them, carrying her latest research. The changes in their society are remarkable, she said. Their art, music, and literature have exploded with new ideas. They're not just copying our piece, they're finding their own way to it. Outside, a Coalition ship landed in the new spaceport, but unlike the warships of their past, this one was designed for exploration. Its sides bore markings in both human and Coalition languages. To seek, to learn, to grow. Admiral Reed watched it land. Remember when they used to test our defenses? He asked. Now they test their own limits in a different way. The ship's crew emerged, a mix of humans and Coalition members. They carried samples from distant stars, maps of new worlds, and most importantly, stories of peaceful contact with other species. We found others like us, the mission commander reported to Ray. Species trapped in cycles of violence, afraid to choose another path. We showed them what the humans showed us, that there's always another choice. Thompson turned to Ray. You've become teachers yourselves. We learned from the best, Ray replied. Your people didn't just show us peace was possible. You showed us how to help others find it too. In the garden, a Coalition child showed a human child how to grow crystal flowers, an art form that had replaced war trophies in their culture. Nearby, human teachers worked with Coalition elders to combine their different types of medicine, creating new ways to heal. Walker touched the wall of the chamber, once built to withstand attacks, now opened up to let in light and air. Your architecture has changed too, he noted. Yes, Ray said. We no longer build to keep others out. We build to welcome them in. Dr. Miller's research team had documented everything. Future generations will study this, she said. How two species from different stars learned to trust each other. How peace spread across space not through force, but through choice. As evening fell, the first stars appeared in the sky. The Coalition's ancient prophecies had said these stars were challenges to be conquered. Now, their children saw them as mysteries to be explored. There will still be conflicts, Thompson said realistically. Disagreements, problems, challenges. Of course, Ray agreed. But now we know they don't have to end in violence. There are better ways to be strong. A group of Coalition scientists called Ray over to show him their latest project. A device that could turn asteroid fields into gardens. The same minds that once designed weapons now created new forms of life. Walker watched them work. You know what the best part is, he said to Thompson. What's that? They're not just copying us anymore. They're creating their own path to peace, their own way of choosing it every day. As night fell, the chamber lit up with bioluminescent art, another new form of expression the Coalition had developed. In its light, humans and aliens sat together, sharing meals, sharing stories, sharing dreams of what could be. Dr. Miller made her final entry in the project log. The question was never whether humans should choose peace over war. The real question was whether we could help others make that same choice. Today, we have our answer. Peace isn't just a human choice anymore. It's becoming a galactic one. And it all started with one simple idea, that the strongest weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's the courage to put weapons down.